On today's episode, I'm going to talk to you about how I handle leads and how I move them from contact to contract. Enjoy. How old are you going to be before you start to experience life like you want it? I want to tell you right now, whether you like it or not, there is a better way to do business. Hi everyone, welcome to the Business for Builders podcast. My name's Max, I am your host. I'm the ambitious founder of EliteBusinessAdvisory.com, where we specialise in business coaching for general contractors and builders. Great to have you with me today. If you're in podcast land or if you're in YouTube land, great to have you in the house. Again, warm welcome if this is the first time you're checking us out. I hope you get something good, and for those that have been with me for the longest time, I appreciate you hanging in there. Right, also one of these drops every week. Like and subscribe. If you've got any questions, drop them in the comments below, and I will get round to responding to those. If you want to email me, max@elitebusinessadvisory.com. Get across to Facebook, the Business for Builders VIP. That's a community where I'm really encouraging builders to start reaching out to each other. That's not really a platform where I'm, going to sort of add massive amounts of value, but I make sure that people don't get in there that are just trying to sell us shit, because you can buy stuff anywhere, anytime. That little ecosystem is for just being able to ask questions in a safe environment. So get across to check that out. I think that's about the long and the short. As usual, want to give you something that you can tuck under your arm and walk away with today. So if you're on the old YouTubes, you can see over my shoulders there's a list of things going on there. So if you're listening to the podcast when you get home or you get some spare time, get across to Business for Builders YouTube and check it out. Right. So look, I think to me as a builder, being a co-owner of Smith & Sons Coldstream, it's a real building company in this little old town called Vernon in British Columbia. For those that don't know, I moved here about 10 years ago. And fast forward, we've decided to, have a controlling interest in a Smith & Sons franchise. Now, so what I'm doing is I'm balancing, I guess being a teacher and a coach of sorts, but also a frontline operator. I mean, I'm a business guy through and through first and foremost. And then what I do here is a lot about, I guess, good karma, giving back, identifying the fact that if you're a youngster, and I'm talking, maybe mid-20s, mid-30s, and you're really trying to make a go of something in the building industry as it relates to a building company, not necessarily subcontract. I was a subcontract carpenter for 20 years and had up to 5 crews of 3 guys. And then I morphed into going, well, I'm not going to work for builders anymore. I'm going to go and get my builder's license. So I did that, and so there was nothing out there. I mean, in that day and age, really at the kind of depth there is now. And so to me, the industry's been pretty good to me. And I really enjoy, what I do, both from a corporate management standpoint, but also from, an operating building company standpoint. And so, I really want to sort of encourage you guys that, we've talked about it before, the more you learn, the more you earn. I think at some point you pay the ignorant tax. You either pay it in advance or you'll pay it as you go forward. And so one way or the other, you're going to pay to play. So what I'm trying to do here is give you that awareness, bring stuff to your awareness, like maybe what's going to be talked about today. And then of course, if I can get the education to go with that awareness, that will give you a really good fighting chance of how you will make your business better. And we're all about more profit, better lifestyle. Okay, let's get cracking. There's a thing called Kanban, which is a kind of weird term, but I think it's a Japanese term. And really, it's just a visual representation of a system. And so what I've got listed out behind me here is what I call lead status. So what I like is, because I'm a practical learner and I understand that the 6 inches between my ears is not for storage, okay? It's for creativity and troubleshooting, okay? So for me, I prefer to download statuses. Let's say we're going to talk about lead statuses, right? And how we use a Kanban format or board, if you like, to monitor the activity within the sales part of our business. Now, you'll see over my left shoulder, there's makes references there to, pre or handover phase and completion and warranty and out of warranty and things like that. But for the most part, where us builders drop the ball is certainly in the early part of the relationship building process with our brand new clients. Okay, so the sales process can be long and complex, especially for general contractors and home builders with many moving parts. And so this is why a Kanban board like I've got set out in my JobTread helps me identify where I'm up to in the sales process. So I know exactly where each of my prospects are in my pipeline, so I can make quick, informed decisions about my next sales move. So this is what I do. And so this is interesting because what I love about this episode and many of the episodes that I record is that this is not me going, I wonder what I should talk to you guys about today. It's like, what am I doing in my business that if I could share that with a group, how would it help them? Is it something that has merit? Is it something that they can get some benefit from? And so for me as an operator, it's just you and I having a bit of a chat. It's kind of a one-side chat because you don't get to ask me questions. That's what coaching's about. It's just me sort of giving my 2 cents worth to you, explaining to you how I handle, in this case, leads, and what are my lead status gates that I go through on the way through or the way forward. Okay, it makes sense. It makes the sales process transparent so I can focus on what's next, and I eliminate the confusion and the roadblocks or bottlenecks. Now, what you're looking at essentially is a system. Now, we're going to talk a little bit about how we're having a very systematic approach. So when we have a systematic approach, that means there's obviously a system that creates the systematized approach to dealing with clients. Now, right, so how I go setting it up. Now, originally over my right shoulder here is the inquiry source. It's going to be one of these few things. It's going to be website, phone call, referral, social or Google, or print or radio. Like that kind of is pretty much your headline ways in which you're going to get people connecting the dots between them wanting to do a reno or a new build and you, the builder, okay? And then what goes on after the fact, from that initial, what I call contact, through to the building contract, through to completion, and then obviously the warranty phase that happens beyond that if you've got something implemented. It's that kind of setup that allows me to move fast, okay? So let's back up a little bit. Kanban, which was my lead status board essentially, it's a simple visual tool for managing tasks and projects through a series of columns, okay? Because I've got them here as dot points or numbered points, but in my JobTread, each one of these dot points or numbered points has its own column with clients underneath it, okay? Why it's going to work for you and me, because it does make the process a lot more transparent so we know where to go next. And so how do you set it up? Instead of doing dot points, don't do this. In JobTread, I have the ability to go in there and modify the lead status columns, okay? And then I get to modify the order in which they happen. So I've spent a lot of time thinking about the steps that I take a client or how I lead the client or what route that I take the client to go to that serves my business, that delivers to them the expectation and the result and the experience that they would expect. And then obviously it ensures that there is some organization on the way through. Right, so the reason we're doing this is to identify the next sales move. So use a Kanban board to quickly assess which leads are ready for follow-up, which need more information, and which are at risk of falling through the cracks. Now, I'm as guilty as anybody. There's like, one or two things. It's like, I forgot to call that lead, bad. Or once I've got some initial conversation happening, they've fallen through the cracks. What happened? And so this is why for us as builders and general contractors, to store information here is bad news. Like ultimately, if you do this right, the reason I do this, because we've got a local operation here in Vernon and we're looking at, expanding into Nanaimo, I am doing this and talking about this because I don't want to be frontline sales forever, okay? what I want to do is develop the system, the prototype, execute, tweak it, get all the bugs, out of it, get all the wrinkles ironed, so that then I can train, or I can onboard and train and keep accountable salespeople who do this. So this is why I do this. I don't do this because I do this because I want to grow a business. Do you? Is that right? Okay, got that squared away. Okay, so it helps me with all of, it's to avoid, this system, which I think in general, systems do this. They make up for my incompetence. Because once I get system overload in my brain, I start dropping the ball. I become incompetent. I miss things, So when we've got lots of plates spinning on sticks, what happens is plates fall off sticks and they hit the ground. Bad news. Okay, so this is time saving. It'll help you prioritize the high value leads and bottlenecked opportunities, so you can move through the pipeline a lot more efficiently. Okay. Now, the most obvious thing is that we use this to track the progress of each of our leads. So if we update this, there's some points here that we move pretty swiftly, but then there's points where, and I'm going to run through each of these points, so I better get done with this intro. Update the board regularly to track the status of every lead. This helps identify trends and areas where your sales process might need adjustment, okay? Right, so let's get rid of the notes. Now, I'm just going to talk to you about how I go about, and this is not delivered from JobTread. This is me. This is my brain. This is the way I think, right? Remember, I'm trying to fill in for my incompetence. So I'm going to have a system that's going to make me look good and make me look organized, okay? Right, so here's your inquiry sources. Now, if you go to my website right now, smithandsons.ca, and you fill out a contact form, that will end up in my JobTread immediately under lead in, okay? So that's what I've got set up. Now, if I take a phone call, I'll either take written notes, and then I've got to double handle that into the system, or alternatively, I'll be making notes on my own contact form, and when I'm finished the phone call and I'm happy with the information, I hit submit, and then I basically entered that lead from my website into my JobTread management system, right? So what I want you to do, you might say, oh, Max, you just complicated. I'm not doing that. Fine. Remember, my 2 cents worth, sharing with you what I do. If you like it, great. If you don't like it, great. Okay? Maybe you'll take all of it. Maybe you'll take some of it, right? Now, I would expect there to be a JobTread link that I've been given by Eric Fortenberry, who is the founder of JobTread, based in, I think he's in Dallas, Texas. And if you're interested in checking that out, go and click on that link in the description of this episode, and you can just go and have a bit of a look around. Now, I want you to ask if Paris Woolover, I think that's her last name. She's the one who takes good care of me and all of my business coaching clients that I've referred to JobTread. Okay, I would love for you to have Paris to take care of you, because she takes great care of us. Okay, now, so what I'm doing here is I'm looking to give somebody to give me the prompt to go, Max, the lead in. So that lead does not sit there for very long. The next thing that I'll do is that I'll send a welcome email to my brand new inquiry. Now, what I do is I've got a draft email. Okay, so on my browser, I've got my email, I've got JobTread and a bunch of other stuff, right? So what I do is the minute I get a lead in, I will then go to that email, draft, and I will cut that email out of there. Of course, it needs modification editing, okay, so don't get lazy. And then I'll cut, because that's embarrassing if you go, hi, client name, you kind of look like a goose. So don't do it. Be careful, right? Be thorough, right? Read it through 3 or 4 times. I do, okay? So I'm super careful because I don't want to look like a goose. So cut and paste that in there, right? So we modify their name, we modify the subject line, we modify the type of project and things like that. Bang. So we send that out. Now, so that client, if I wake up and there was a lead in there this morning, I wake up, first thing I do, I see it, I go, I've got to move that from lead in, I've got to then move that to welcome sent. So I've got to grab my email, format it the way I want it, send it off, okay? Now, once that's sent, I'm asking them for a couple of dot points. I'm actually in that email. I'm asking them to, hey, let me know you've got it with a simple got it return serve, and save this email address as a safe sender. Okay. Now, I also ask them that they can upload any of the pictures and any more description they have, and floor plans or anything that they've got in the way of attachments. No videos yet. And so that starts getting the ball rolling. Now, if they respond to that, which is great, I can then start a dialogue. Okay. Now, what I want to do soon after the welcome sent, this goes, okay, I see it, I action this, and then I pick the phone up. Okay. So if I've sent them a message and they've quickly responded, great. If they haven't, my next thing will immediately be contact made. Now, what I do is if you were one of my inquiries, I would not just, if I rang you and it went to voicemail, I'd hang up and ring you straight back. I call that the double tap, okay? Because odds on, if sometimes people don't hear the phone, they don't get to the call in time, it goes to answer machine first, so I circle back real quick, bang another phone. Then if they don't pick up, I then will leave a voicemail, right? Which is why this is called contact made or attempted. Now, in the event that I don't make contact with them and I don't get a response, there's a last call. Now that's made up of a couple of things and there's a series. So over a couple of days, I will call, leave a voice message, I will send a text message and I'll send an email, and I'll do that over a week, every other day. And in the event that we don't get any contact, I have a templated email, again, that I use for last call. And it's structured so that I get their attention, and it does make reference to that. I'm going to take them off the list and I'm going to close their file for now, but if they'd like to reach out in the future, I'm happy to reopen. Because I've got to exclude the pretenders, because I've got to get to the players. Make sense? Right. Obviously then, if we've been successful and I've stepped over the last call because I've been able to make contact, I can then go to a site visit, okay? So obviously, if I booked a site visit, great, they go in here. If I've gone out there and I've done the site visit, great, they stay there. The next thing that I've got to do very promptly is, based on the conversation I've had at the site visit, I can then start talking to them around, at the site visit, what my expectation is around using my historical data and my experience. I think your kitchen reno is going to cost between $55,000 and $70,000. How do you feel about that? Now, the reason is when I take that data back to the office, I will already know whether or not I think this is going to be a deal or a no deal. Now, putting this together is really so we utilize every minute of every day that we're at work and in sales at its optimum. We don't want to be dealing with the tire kickers, the thumb suckers, the price checkers, the pretenders, okay? We want to really move the dirt to find the gold. And unfortunately, buyers can be liars. Okay, so the opinion of probable cost is the other thing that I do there. So you're going to give them that estimate. Now, I sent out an estimated price range to a homeowner, I guess about 2 weeks ago, and it was 49 to 65 or something. And he comes back on text message saying, I need it done. Actually, he messaged me through JobTread. He's like, I need this done under 50 grand. So now, and here's what I did, right? I'm not giving you advice. I'm just telling you a story. But this is what I did. It's an 800 square foot deck or an 80 square meter deck. It's kind of wrap around on 3 sides, 4 feet down each side of the house, and then 10 or 12 feet across the front. And what's happened is there's been water ingress because they poured 2 inches of concrete over the top of it, and it's pretty much shagged, right? So we've got to go and basically, and the posts are like 14 feet apart, and the beams are sagging. So what I've got to do is we've got to basically take off the handrail, get rid of the concrete, strip the deck out, cut the post down, put proper size beams, basically rebuild the whole deck. Now, I also included and this is why the estimated price range, I don't believe that I spoke to him at that meeting and said, hey, this is what I think it'll cost you. But when I did sit down and do the numbers, it was definitely, between that 49 and 65,000. And one of those expensive parts was what they call in Canada, the aluminum vented soffit or soffit. that they use, that system that they put underneath. Now that was probably a $10,000 maneuver. He wanted it done for under 50, so I was able to exclude that from the revised quote and ship it to him, and I think we came in at 49,400. Okay, and so it's important that we know this, because if we're going to, we've got to figure out why we're doing this, and this is a time saver. Okay. Because if it wasn't if it wasn't as simple as what it is, it's a deck, then I would move them into the selection phase. So you can compare an 80 square meter or an 800 square foot deck versus a second story addition that's got about 2,750 square feet or 270 square meters. And those two projects demand a lot, they're very polarizing. Deck, all carpentry, and one other trade, okay? Whereas the second story addition is what it is. It's a massive undertaking. So that's where I've got to go. On the deck, I chose not to go to the pre-construction. I did run it through AI, okay? But then I moved it into I stepped over the pre-construction agreement, and I went straight into the design plan and pricing, because it was very straightforward. So I didn't get hung up on that, because I do want to get to a deal. Like, I don't want this to take any longer than it ought, okay? But I don't want to miss anything either. Right, so yesterday I presented him with the quote. He'll get 2 or 3 days max to think about it, because, dude, there's not a lot to think about. Okay, he knows that I gave him an estimated price range of 49 to 65. He demanded that it had to happen under 50, so I went, I can do that. I just pulled out, 12 grand's worth of, a soffit or soffit. And so I was go, there you go, mate. So it's like, what are you waiting for? So I know that I hesitate to use the word bully, but I can certainly advance the deal. So where are we up to? Because the quote's got 7 days on it, right? So he's got 7 days to make his mind up. So I'm at that follow-up mode now. I've presented the quote. So he sits in this line item now, okay? And obviously this here is kind of that's a pivotal point in my process, because I'm either going to get a yes or a no, give or take, right? Now, if it's a yes, we kind of probably are now here in negotiation. So this is where it's at. So I've dropped it on him yesterday. Now, 24 hours later, I can then upgrade or move him through my chart from left to right and put him, we're in negotiation. Because, he's using his missus that she's the financial controller and she's the gov and she's got to make the decisions and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, righto, mate, whatever. Okay, so we're in negotiations right now. So now this next one's very interesting, because there is a whole raft of reasons why I've created the suspense account. Now, in some cases, I had a phone call with a client yesterday, and we met him at the home show in March. We're recording this in June of 2025. I met him, in March of 2025. He told me he needed 3 months. Guess what? I follow him up based on my system. And so what I've just done is I put him into the suspense account again, because he's asked me for another 3 months. Now, the next call I have with this guy, because it's now been 6 months, is that, mate, I just want to let you know that if we don't move ahead at the moment, I am forced to increase your quote by 7 or 8%, whatever the number is for you, but that's kind of where I'm thinking. Because I've got to get him now. I've got to knock him off the fence, left or right. What's it going to be? I can't have you just lingering out there forever. I probably could, because I use the suspense column to just stack where I've got, in some cases I've got one client that's arm wrestling with insurance companies. He had a fire and there's a whole bunch of other stuff going on there outside my purview. I follow him up and have a chat with Brian quickly about what's going on yesterday. And he's like, mate, we're getting close, but not ready to do a deal, maybe in the fall. So later on this year, right? So there's kind of like, it's not really in negotiation, because he's got a third party insurance company that he's talking to. So it just goes into my suspense column. And that's where I kind of circle back and go, how's it going? Where are we up to? Because I've got to figure out of that suspense column, where do we go back to? Are we going back into negotiation? Because that could end up, he says, look, my insurance company, I thought they were going to give me $350. Now they're only going to give me $250. What I've got to do then is go back into, because, financing and negotiation, I've got to go back in here and probably go back into design plan and pricing and re-quote some of it to fit now the finance that he's got available. So this is why, if you just have a bunch of leads in your whatever system, You're not going to, and you get a lot of leads because let's say you do good marketing. What you're going to do is, if you've got good inquiry, you're going to outmarket yourself. You're going to drown yourself in inquiry because you don't know where to go next. You look at your forecast for jobs. You look at your cash flow forecast. You've got to sort of figure out, okay, do I need a big job? Do I need to fill a job? Where am I up to? Am I looking to fill jobs now for next season, early next year? Like, I've got to have some way of qualifying. So when I'm circling back, I go back to my suspense column and I say, right, who have I got to knock off the fence? Can I get them to a no? Right, a no is as good as a yes in the fact that it doesn't now live in your system or your head rent-free. Okay, you want to know who your players are. I got one pub right now, we've had a quote for, I don't know, it must be 8 months. They're dealing with an insurance company as well. It's like, can someone just make a decision? So what they do is they're sitting in my suspense because my whole activity is suspended, but I can't forget about them. So whenever I'm just looking, whenever I've had, let's say I've dealt with the hot leads, and then I'm like, okay, so I'm trying to set up work now for next month or the month after. What I do is I go back and visit my suspense column. I'm like, right, who can I move to a deal? Who haven't I spoken to for a month? Okay, now, side note, obviously having a CRM where all of these homeowners or clients potentially, where are they up to, is that I can be sending them that newsletter every month or that contact where I'm educating and informing, and then they never really forget about us, because that's what happens if you don't have a suspense column. You're going to forget about them, and it'll be like 8 months later, you're like, I wonder whatever happened to that, because I did give them a quote, but they kind of put me off because they're having a baby or whatever. How do I go about circling back? Well, they've probably forgotten who you are. I've had clients that have said to me, Max, you did a job for us, 2 years ago. Now I didn't do the job for them. It was actually done through one of my franchised operators. They forgot the operator, but they'd remember the brand, and that's the power of a CRM with that kind of educational process built in. Okay, so let's move on. Okay, so let's say we've gone and we've negotiated the final deal. Obviously, I want to know, because obviously when we're making building application, our second story edition, we've just got engineering back. So now we could probably start formulating or putting together the package to go to the city. So it's going to sit in there for the best part of 6 to 8 weeks. Okay, nothing you can do about it. What that helps me do is when I'm again forecasting and looking at it, I can go right, who's in the suspense, who am I knocking off the fence, and then right, who have I got in the building application? Do I need to follow up with city? Like, do I need to find out, hey, it's been in the suspense column now for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks. Can I ring up the city and just see if there's any dramas with our application, right? Okay, contract signing. That sometimes takes, now obviously the building application is going to have fees associated. So there's a little bit of a point there where you go, well, we're going to lodge application for the building approval, but we haven't actually got a signed contract yet. Now, this is where it gets a little precarious, because you would want to make sure you've got an approval in principle based on the quote you presented and the negotiation you've had. And I've had several conversations with our larger client, and we've got head nods all around, we've got approvals in principle, so that what happens is, because I've got an agreement with that client that I'm doing all the preliminaries, design and planning, cost plus 10%, I can move to this because we've got an understanding around the contract, the build price. We can move here with some level of confidence, knowing full well that I'm not going to be out of pocket, and the client's not going to get a building approval for a project that can't be done. Okay, so there you go. That's the sweet spot you're looking for. Now remember, you're the builder. You have got to lead this. And this is the challenge with us builders. We're very good on the tools. We were good enough to get our credential as a building operator or a licensed builder. However, we haven't got systems to make us, to remove the embarrassment of being incompetent. And unfortunately, more often than not, most builders are making this shit up on the fly. They forget, and then they look stupid in front of their clients, and their clients are going, boy, have we really got the right person? Okay. So if you're saying, Max, I'm sick and tired of hearing you talk about systems, I'm like, okay, fine. But when you start dropping the ball, what you're going to fall back on is, I need a system for that. Okay, systems will fill the gaps, right? So let's say, so what I will do simultaneously, because I've got an agreement in principle, and I've got the building approval, I will go for a contract signing subject to city approval, okay? And we will take a signing deposit for sure. And basically then these two here, so the contract signing, that includes the specifications, that includes the completion date, and obviously everything else that goes into our 13-page doc. That'll all be there. These will, basically this is where we hit a bit of a limbo period again. Okay, so that client can only sit in one of these in my system. It will probably sit in the building application because the contract is not worth anything unless I get an approval. So basically we'll go here. Now, if it didn't need building approval, this is where you'll be going, all right, we've submitted the contract to them, we're waiting for them to sign, okay, if there was no building approval process. And then of course, the rest of this is fairly self-explanatory. Under construction, right, so when you've got jobs on the fly, that's where you start stacking these clients. The handover phase, that will be triggered in relation to your Gantt chart. And for me, it's inside of JobTread, where I go into, I need to do a pre-handover walkthrough with the clients. Usually that happens 2 weeks in advance, so that I get all of those sticky dots and notes and everything all over my job in advance, because what I don't want to do at the handover day is to go and have a client walking through picking it to bits. So I will postpone the handover date where I can, and I'll have a pre-handover walkthrough, which essentially is the handover, but it's where I go, you know what, from this point onwards, it's just a matter of tidying up the bits and pieces till I get to the final handover. So that when we do get to the handover, we're not running around with post-it notes and taking massive deficiency lists and things like that. That's all done in advance so that I can execute on handover day efficiently and professionally. Right, so handover phase, the project is complete, and that's where they'll probably sit whilst I'm conversing with them about the final aspects to wrap it up. If there's anything else, I would expect project complete would constitute a certificate of completion that defines the actual completion date and the commencement of the warranty period. And then obviously, because I'm very customer client centric and really would and encourage them to provide some sort of feedback on video, just like I'm doing here, this is an actual stage for me. Okay, if I can't get them into a video review, I would certainly encourage them to share their experience on a Google written review. It's not obviously we want the video, right? But it's definitely more challenging for them. It's a little bit more challenging for us from a building company standpoint, because it costs us probably $2,500 to get that wrapped up and shot and produced. And then of course, more passively, then I just move them into under warranty, because I want to make sure I know where I've got obligations. And then of course, once they're a client out of warranty, they will just sit there. So guys and gals, I hope that's kind of given you a little bit of an insight into a couple of different aspects of your business that can make it better. Being organized obviously is one. Having a system to manage your lead flow is another. And then obviously the ability to help you close deals or identify those deals that are worth your time to work on to get more business. If you've got any questions, either drop them in the comments below if you're on YouTube, or you can feel free to send me an email, max@elitebusinessadvisory.com. If you're on Spotify or iTunes, we'd love it if you could give us a quick review there. Get across to Business for Builders VIP on Facebook. Like and subscribe. Go build a kick-ass business. See you on the next episode. Cheers.